I hope you're well and already focused on Jesus. We're in Matthew chapter 5, where we're going to be looking at 28 characteristics of human love being perfected by the presence of perfect love, which is Christ in us, the hope of glory. And right now we're in the Beatitudes. There are 9 of them. We're dividing them into 3 groups of 3. We're looking at them as a process of perfect love, Christ in us, perfecting our love. And we are moved in our inner life through this process of transformation, which begins with poverty of spirit, moves to mourning, to meekness, to hunger and thirst for righteousness, to mercy, and purity of heart. And today we want to talk about peacemaking. One of the ways in which we know that our love is being perfected is that we're not afraid to go into the middle of a conflict to try to bring peace to the warring factions, or the couple that's fighting and getting ready to be divorced, or a family issue, or a neighborhood issue, or an economic issue. And we find ourselves thrust into a situation where we have very little to gain, perhaps nothing to gain, and a great deal of pain that will probably be thrust on us because we're in a place where there is a war going on. One of the characteristics of a person whose love is being perfected by Jesus is that we have a kind of fearlessness that comes from knowing that our lives are safe in Jesus. Jesus said, "He who believes in me will never die." Living here in Brazil right now, we're going through a tremendous social upheaval where many of Brazil's major cities are in the hands of great, enormous criminal operations, drug sales, and all types of crazy behavior. It's a war zone in many of the cities. And I think of all of the Christians, many of them very poor, who live in these cities here, and they're there in the midst. They have no way to move away, but what they can do is they can be a part of a peace process. They can be people who live this, blessed are the peacemakers. And as they live this role, many of them will never be known, many of them will never be rewarded. And when you take the role of a peacemaker, you can take incoming fire from both sides in the battle. When you are wearing the mantle of a peacemaker, you're like Jesus. You're in the middle of a war that you didn't start, but you're in the middle of a war that perhaps your presence can bring peace and save other lives, but it could even cost you your own life. Blessed are the peacemakers. There's a lot of people who spend their lives being peacemakers. And I've noticed this about peacemakers. Many times when the conflict is over, the people who now have peace, they forget the peacemakers. Many of us have seen Jesus as our Savior, and we know we're going to heaven when we die. And then we move along our merry way and we forget the price that was paid for our peace. And we don't continue to spread His love. We just simply take the good thing that happened for us and move on. Sometimes people don't want to remember the crisis they lived in, so they forget the crisis and they forget the peacemaker. We can't forget Jesus. He lives in us. We should never forget who He is and what He wants to do with us. And one of the things that Jesus wants to do with you and wants to do with me is make me the presence of His peace where I'm at. That's why many times He leaves us in places where conflicts are great. I know of missionaries, I've known some personally, who have given their lives in certain places in this world only because they wanted to see peace there. And what it gained for them was an early entrance into heaven, or maybe a perfectly timed entrance into heaven, and maybe they'll never be remembered. Maybe there'll never be a plaque or a monument, but they will not be forgiven, and great will be their reward in heaven. I pray that you would be an agent of peace today If your love is being perfected by Jesus, who is perfect love, and you are in this flow of the Beatitudes, you will be a peacemaker.